Hey, Allison Verhalen here, coming at you live for today's Marketing Monday. So let's get into it. So today I wanted to talk to you about the AI. I know it's like a trigger word at this point for some of us. I was kind of putting off writing a whole other blog post about it just because I played around with some different AI writing software back in June of last year and wrote a whole blog post about that. So since that was less than a year ago, I wanted to give it at least one full year before I start talking about AI writing again. But so much has happened since then that I just can't not write about it, you guys. Right now we have ChatGPT, we got Google's Bard. I have been talking about this a little bit on social media. By a little bit, I mean a fair amount. So I do want to get into it. So let's talk about it. I do want to mention, first of all, that AI writing software is not new exactly, right? Like everyone is talking about ChatGPT as if this is the first time that robots have created content for us, and it's not. Back in 2018, 5 years ago, Google released a new feature in Gmail. I use Gmail all the time. And I was so ecstatic because I don't think I saw this announcement come out. I was just going through my email. I was using the Gmail app on my phone. I think I was waiting for a train so I could get somewhere, right? And I just needed to respond to someone real quick. And I saw that at the bottom, there were 3 buttons that popped up at the bottom of that email saying, yes, this is great, or confirmed, or no, sorry, I can't, right? And I could choose one and just click a button, right? All I had to do was press it and it would autofill there and I could hit send. And that's it. I was done. Two clicks, 2 taps of my screen. That email was sent. I could move on to the next one so much faster. It made my life so much easier. And I have used it ever since. Obviously, there are times when it's not. We will talk about this a lot. The fact that AI is not always accurate, right? So there have been plenty of times where it's like, no, I can't use any of these. None of these make sense. But when they do make sense, makes my life so much easier. I especially love it in my Gmail app on my phone because when I'm typing out an email on my phone is when I'm most likely to make a typo. There have been some hilariously bad social media posts that I've made because I've been on my phone and I made a typo and did not check my work before hitting that publish button and went, oh no. People had to call me out and it was very embarrassing. So Gmail saves me from that, has been saving me from that for 5 years now. There is also, if you're not familiar with Gmail, or if maybe you turned off this feature, but again, I love this feature. I use it all the time, both in Gmail and in my Word document. While you're typing, it'll prompt you to say, is this how you want to finish this phrase? And if the answer is yes, you can just hit tab and it will fill it in for you. The cursor will jump to the end of that gray area and you can just keep typing. Again, it makes me type so much faster. It is so helpful when it works, right? AI does not always work. There was one time just last week, I was writing something in Gmail and I can't remember exactly what I was talking about. I just know the prompt came up and it was hilariously bad. It was like the exact opposite of what I was trying to say. It was so funny. So that will be a theme in this video. AI is not always right, but when it is, it can make our lives so much easier, right? And this is not new to AI. We talk about this all the time, right? How many times have you heard and or said the phrase that, technology is great when it works and when it doesn't work, it drives us nuts. I have a friend who always says that, if technology is not breaking down, if it's not causing frustration, you're not using it enough. Same with AI writing software, right? It's another tool. It's another piece of technology. It can be great when it works, and when it doesn't, it can lead to hilariously bad outcomes, like Google's Bard, which leads straight into my next one. I do want to talk about ChatGPT versus Google's Bard, with the caveat that I've not used Google's Bard at all. I have spent a little bit of time playing around with ChatGPT, not nearly as much as some other people have. So a fair amount of information in this is second and third hand. But I do have to talk about that hilariously bad advertisement, right, with Google, where they asked their Bard a question and it was the wrong answer. And instead of checking that, everyone at Google just went ahead and released that advertisement and showed their butts, basically. It was hilarious. That does not mean that Bard is worse than ChatGPT, because the first time I asked ChatGPT a question, it gave me a wrong answer. which is why I don't use it. That is why I have been very hesitant to use it and play around with it, is because the first time I used it, it was just plain wrong. And that's a big part of being of creating content and being a marketer, is positioning yourself as an expert in your industry and providing accurate answers to the questions people are asking. And if AI is going to give me a wrong answer, why would I use it? So I'm not against Google's Bard. I'm not against ChatGPT or any AI, but you gotta check its work. You have to make sure it's accurate. Everyone, I mean, I'm far from the first person to point this out, that anyone working on that Google ad could have checked Bard's work by Googling it, right? They could have used their own search engine to check the Bard's work. So funny. So you have to, when you are using AI, whatever you're using it for, you have to check its work. Don't just take it at face value, say, okay, great, I've got my content, I can go ahead and publish. That's not going to get you results. You have to check its work, make sure it's accurate. This can be easier said than done, depending on the industry you're in, how much of an expert in your industry or in the industry you're writing about you are an expert in, right? So obviously, if you're having it create content for yourself, right? So the first time I asked ChatGPT a question, it was about blogging and white papers, right? So obviously I know the answer to that question. I already had a whole other blog post about it. I wasn't going to use that content. I was just playing around, right? So if you're using this for your content for your own industry, hopefully you already know the answer. You can check its work yourself. My problem is, because I do create a lot of content for my clients, I'm not always the expert. I'm very good at faking it. But there are some times where I get it wrong and they have to come back to me before, after I turn in the content and say, actually, can you clean this up? Can you clarify this? Because you didn't get it quite right. Totally okay. That's what I'm here for. Same with AI. Sometimes you got to say, no, ChatGPT, you got this wrong. You got to clean it up. All right, moving on. So how AI writing software works is it scans the internet when you ask it a question, or tell it to create content about something. It will scan the internet and find content related to that and kind of create an amalgamation of all the content that it finds, and just kind of regurgitate that for you, which is super dangerous for the spreading of misinformation, which we know there's already a whole lot of that out there online. So I'm afraid that certainly don't ask ChatGPT or Google Bard any medical questions or financial questions, because we've already seen the horrors of looking those things up online. Because as far as we've seen, Google or ChatGPT will probably tell you have cancer regardless of the symptom you put in there. Or these days it will probably tell you have COVID, or it will say COVID doesn't exist, right? So that is one of the dangers of AI. Is people have already seen that it can spread misinformation much faster. So that's fun. Again, not saying that's a reason to not use it. Just be careful with the content that it creates for you and the content that you distribute that is created with AI. There are going to be pros and cons to every technology. Always. That's just the nature of technology. So just be aware of that particular con and try to mitigate it. But again, this is also why I'm wary of AI writing software, is if it's just regurgitating content that's already out there, how are you creating content that sets you apart from the competition if you're just creating the same content that everyone else is creating? So again, edit the content. Yeah, I had this conversation with another SEO professional, and they've been struggling to find a way to use ChatGPT for their business, because again, they create a lot of content and their team creates a lot of content. So they tried things like, asking ChatGPT to come up with 5 blog post topics for a client that they've had for a while, and this client already has a fair number of blog posts. So of the 5, the 4 topics they've already covered, and the 5th one didn't make sense, right? So that's going to be the problem, is if you ask it for these content ideas. I mean, that's one way to use ChatGPT or Google Bard. But again, it's scanning the internet to see what's already out there. That's not going to help you stand out. That's not going to help you rank in searches, because you're just creating content that's already ranking for those searches. Not super helpful. I do have a whole other video and blog post and presentation all about coming up with content topics, so I'm not going to get into that here. I will say, actually, not included in that list in my blog post is probably the most important one, which is ask your clients. Ask the people that you meet at networking events. Ask the real life people who know you, what do they want to know about. You'll get much more specific answers about their problems and their pain points and how you can solve them for them. You'll also get a better idea of the kind of expert they perceive you to be, which if they're on the mark, great. If they're not quite on the mark, that means that your messaging needs work, which is also good information for you to have, because now you need to, now you know you need to work on it. All right. So we've talked about some of those, how AI works, some of the things you need to look out for. Now we need to know how to use AI the right way. I did misspell that intentionally in this title, right? Like I said, first and foremost, edit AI written content, check its work, make sure it's accurate. Also make sure that it's something that you want to, you feel good about publishing and you say, yes, this stands out. I played around with AI generated content. And again, one of the reasons I don't use it much is because I write really quickly, because I write all the time. It doesn't take me very long to write a blog post, even some of the longer blog posts. The last time I tried to write with AI written content, I timed it. So I wrote one blog post from scratch, and then I used AI to write a different blog post, same client, same length. And then I edited it and added some stuff. It actually took me longer to do all that with the AI content than it took me to just write it from scratch. So it's like, okay, yeah, this is not helping me. But again, that's me. I write super fast. If that's not the case for you, if AI is going to speed things up for you, even with all of the editing, by all means use it. Just don't skip the editing part. You might still have to spend a fair amount of time editing it. And then maybe put it through an AI checker after you're done editing it to make sure that it comes back as human. Even if the base of the content, even if it started created by AI, you should edit it enough so that an AI checker will say, yeah, this was written by a real human, right? Maybe it wasn't written by a human, but maybe it was edited by a human to the point where an algorithm cannot tell the difference. So take that into account. Tell a story, right? So not just edit the content that it gives you, but add to it. I have yet to see AI create a compelling story. I was actually talking about this with someone a few months ago, and he told AI to write a story about me, and he copied and pasted it to me, and it was hilariously bad, right? So stories are so important because we're humans. We're primed to engage with stories. We are primed to remember stories, right? So you can tell us all the facts and figures. AI is great at telling us all the facts and figures. So although some of the facts may not be accurate as discussed, right? So using AI to kind of get the bare bones and then telling a story around those bare bones, I think is a great use of AI in a way to create content that is still compelling, still going to draw people in. But also, like I said, if AI lets you do it faster, by all means, use AI to do the boring stuff. Just don't miss out on that story. It is too important. Use AI to generate prompts, right? I talked about using it for content generation, topic ideas. Not always a great idea, but you could use it to generate prompts. A lot of us, sometimes it's just getting started. That can be the hardest part. If you just have a line or a paragraph to help you kind of get over that hump and get the creative juices flowing, by all means, use AI to do that. That can be a great use of AI. And identify your brand voice. So again, one of my problems with AI is that it was very generic content when I started using it. I have heard from other people that means that I just didn't use it enough. If you give AI, because it is AI, it will learn. And I have seen this again when I use the AI writing software in Gmail and in Word documents. I tend to write the same things over and over again. And eventually it did learn how I wanted to finish those sentences. So it will get there. It does tend to use the same words that I use a lot. So it has learned that. ChatGPT can be the same way. It can learn your voice. Still not sure that's relevant for me because I'm not always writing in my voice. I'm frequently writing in my client's voice. So I don't know if that would mean that I would need to retrain it every time I'm writing for a new client, which sounds like, again, more work than just writing it myself, or if I would need a different account for each client. For me, that sounds like it's more work than it's worth. But if you're just creating content for yourself, by all means, go ahead and you can play around with it by giving it feedback on the content that it creates. And every time you respond to it, it will look at the language that you're using to give it feedback, to respond to it, to learn how you write, and incorporate those words and those phrases into the content that you're creating. So it is useful for that, but that means you have to define your brand voice, right? So if you're writing for yourself, no worries. But if you're writing for a larger brand, or if you want to establish your company as a brand, you need to know what you want that brand to sound like. Do you know how to define your brand voice? Is the tone of all of your content consistent across all of your content on all of your platforms? Is it effectively attracting your ideal clients? Does it help differentiate you from competitors? Is it representing your brand in the way you want your brand to be represented? You have to think about all of this before you even start using AI. So this is something I help my clients with. So if you need help defining your brand voice before you start writing or having AI write it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And along with that, keyword research. I also do keyword research for my clients. If you saw my blog post or my video from last year, one of my frustrations with the AI software was that it was creating content. I think it asked me for a keyword and then didn't even use that keyword. It seemed to substitute a completely different keyword, and then just use it throughout the content so frequently that it was to the point of keyword stuffing, which is actually bad for your SEO. That can actually hurt you. Also, it's not engaging because when people read content and see the same word and phrase over and over again, it's a real turnoff. So don't do that. But that's what AI was doing. And to make it worse, it wasn't even a good keyword. When it replaced my keyword with a different phrase, I was like, well, maybe this is a better keyword. So I took it back to my keyword tool and looked it up, and there were no searches for that particular keyword. So not only did they delete my keyword and replace it with a different phrase, it wasn't even a good keyword. It wouldn't help me rank for anything in Google, which was super frustrating. And I have not heard about ChatGPT being good for keyword research, right? That's a whole different ballgame. Again, ChatGPT, Google Bard, they will kind of scan the internet and see what's already out there. The best way to do your keyword research is to find the keywords that identify a content gap. That means people are looking for this keyword, so it has a decently high search volume, but not a huge competition score, which means there's not already a ton of content out there. The AI writing software can tell you the content that's already out there. It's not necessarily going to tell you what people are looking for. And it's not going to tell you what people are looking for that doesn't already have a lot of content out there. That is key to identifying yourself, to positioning yourself as an authority in your industry, and to ranking on Google, right? Because if you're competing with a bunch of people for the same topic and the same keywords, you're fighting an uphill battle. It's going to be that much harder to rank for those keywords. Whereas if you find those that low-hanging fruit keywords, so much easier to rank for those phrases. So do your keyword research first, not in AI. Use a tool. I use SERPstat, SERP, stat, STAT, all one word, SERPstat.com. That's my favorite keyword research tool. There are a bunch of other tools out there. You don't have to use that one. That's just the one that I like if you want to get started using something. So do that first. Identify what those gaps are, and then, like I said, use AI to kind of fill in those gaps. So that is it. That is those are most, if not all, of my thoughts for the moment on AI writing software and how to use it the right way, because there's a right way and a wrong way to use it. So that is it. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. I am always over at info@avwritingservices.com, and my website is AV, as in my initials, Allison Barhalen. That is avwritingservices.com. Otherwise, have a great week and happy blogging, everyone.